Hi, I thought I would talk a little bit about a little bit of everything today and see if I can put at least half of you people to sleep. Uh, Half of you people are asleep, and the other half that aren't asleep, I'm going to try to put you to sleep because that's just the kind of guy that I am. Anyway, I want to talk about some subjects that I have no uh, education in, really, other than living and experiencing uh, the things that I think. I think we're all made up of life's lessons, uh, studies, learning things from other people, and so forth. So I'm going to talk about a few things. First thing I want to talk about is the nature of God. I'm not going to talk about whether he's a spirit. Well, you know, says he is a spirit, but it also says that people have seen him in the flesh. I don't mean just Joseph Smith. Moses, for instance. Yes, he saw the burning bush, but he also spoke to God face to face as one man talks to another man. And I'm not saying that God is just a man because he's almighty, all powerful, and he's God. How can you? I mean, he's God. He's so far above us that it's just, it's just mind boggling for anybody that can think that they know where God came from and why he is and what he is capable of doing. And that's absolutely, he's capable of doing everything. Now, I want to talk to you about my personal opinion. If God, when I look down, I'm not looking at notes. My camera is up here instead of looking up like this. I'm getting more of a stiff neck. I'll just kind of look down. But anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about if God has a sense of humor or not. I was sitting in church a couple of years ago, and there's part of the Book of Mormon that talks about or refers to a group of people as stiff-necked people. And I guess stiff-necked people is, people that are set in their ways or don't want to listen to reason or whatever. But I was sitting in church, and I was sitting on in the chapel area. I was sitting on one of the sides, and I had to kind of turn my head to, towards the podium or the pulpit where the talker was giving a talk. And there was a missionary, one of the missionaries was giving a talk. And I was sitting there in church thinking about how stiff my neck was. How stiff my neck was, how it hurt. And I was hoping that the meeting would end soon so I could, wouldn't have to twist my neck. But it's hurting. I had a stiff neck. And so just the minute or the second, I thought that I can't wait till this is over because my neck is stiff. the missionary giving the talk was talking about referencing the Book of Mormon, part of the Book of Mormon, and he said just a second that I thought that. He said, he was talking about the Book of Mormon, and he said, and the stiff-necked people. And so here I was thinking of my stiff neck. Here the speaker, just out of the blue, says, and stiff-necked people. He's reading a verse or something out of the Book of Mormon. And I thought to myself, man, that is absolutely perfect timing. That couldn't have been more perfect. And it's funny. It's funny that here I was having a stiff neck, thinking about my stiff neck, and this guy that's giving a talk all of a sudden says stiff-necked people. I thought, man, that's perfect timing. And I thought, God probably thinks that's funny. I'm sure, I'm 100% convinced that God thought that was funny. Why wouldn't he think it's funny? I could tell 100 people that story, and I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't think that was a little bit funny. Most people probably think it's really funny if they understood it, you know. But if I say that God probably thinks that's funny, I'm not trying to tell people the mind of God or trying to think that I'm know what God feels all the time or whatever. I'm just thinking that he probably thought that was funny. He probably thought that was really funny timing. And he probably thought it was funny that I thought it was funny. I think God has a sense of humor. Why wouldn't he have a sense of humor? We were created in his image and in his likeness. And why wouldn't we think that a loving Heavenly Father would have a sense of humor? Jesus Christ, I'm sure, had a sense of humor. He lived upon the earth. I'm sure he heard people say things that were funny or saw things that happened that were funny. I'm sure he laughed. I'm sure he had a sense of humor. Why wouldn't his Father have a sense of humor? He has everything else. I mean, he's like us. We were created in his image. Why wouldn't he have those attributes that of having a sense of humor? Do you think he's up there just all day long with this, being? Well, that's not funny. No, that's not funny. And just being stern and mean and angry and without feelings. That reminds me about and I've told this story before, but my best friend died several years ago. He was a guy, and no, I wasn't gay, and I'm not gay now, but he had gone through a divorce. I had gone through a divorce. So we had that in common. And we just had fun. We used to go have lunch together, and then we'd go hit the pawn shops and see what the pawn shops were selling. And he used to like buying electronic equipment like CD players or cassette decks, turntables, receivers, things like that. And I used to like buying video games and things like that. And so we just hit, we go to lunch, hit the pawn shops, we go on walks, we would razz each other, we would tell jokes to each other. we would just hang out. And one of the things we used to do is we used to tease each other and say things like, you're as dumb as a doorknob. His name was Don. I used to say, Don, you're about as dumb as a doorknob, or you're about as smart as a telephone pole. I mean, we'd say things back and forth to each other, and we'd laugh. It's called try not to take life so seriously, and to lighten up a little bit. And as one of my best friends would say, chill out. And anyway, so he died, and I was very sad, and because he was a really good friend for, I don't know, several years. And so I remember going up to his grave and up at the cemetery, and I sat on his grave, and other things that we used to razz each other, but we say, Don would say something or I would say something, and one of us would say, what an idiot, what a dumb son of a bitch, I mean, we just laugh. It was fun to razz each other. So anyway, I was sitting on his grave, missing him, and I knew the relationship that we had, that we used to razz each other, and then we'd laugh, and we'd just have a good time, And so I remember sitting on his grave one day, and I was talking to him, and I said, Don, why did you have to go and leave me, you dumb son of a bitch? And the reason I said that is because I wanted to put a smile on his face. And anyway, I had a woman that I was kind of seeing at the time, or corresponding, I should say, I guess, better words. And she was asking me what I did that day, and I told her that I went up to my friend's grave, Don's grave, and I was talking to him. And she said, really, what did you say? I said, and I know her, this woman, she's a nutcase. I'll tell you more about that later, but she was an absolute nutcase. And but anyway, I says, oh, you really don't want to know what I said to him. Sure I do. What did you say to him? And I told her that I was sitting on the grave, and I said, Don, why did you have to go and leave me, you dumb son of a bitch? And the first thing she said, oh, I can't believe that you said that. You're God's son. You're God's son, and God's son would never say such a thing. And I said, yes, I'm God's son, and that's exactly what I said. And I says, and I don't think God's upset at me. And of course he's upset at you. God's son wouldn't talk like that. And so I tried to reason with her. I don't think that I've ever been in my entire life been able to reason with a woman. Seriously, I don't think I've ever been able to reason with a woman. But anyway, I explained to her, or told her, that I said, look, I don't think God's upset at me, and I'll tell you why. Because God knows that that's how we talked to each other when he was on earth, that we had fun doing it. We had fun giving each other, crap, and we didn't mean anything by it. We just had fun doing it. And I said, I know that God knows. I'm not judging God. I'm not saying I know exactly 100% how he is, but I know this. I know that God knows the reason I was saying that is because I wanted to put a smile on my friend's face wherever he was. And I do believe that when you visit a grave, that that person you're visiting is there and they're aware that you're there. I know they're busy, but I think that they are there for that time. And I don't think they live there. I don't think they dwell there. But I think if a loved one comes to visit them, I think they're there. I think they're 100% aware of your where you are, that you're there, what you say to them. And so I was saying that I know that God knows that the reason I said that was no evil intent. I just wanted to put a smile on my friend's face. And God is not going to be upset at me for that. And I believe that to this day. No one is ever going to convince me that God is up there with a pad and a pen and writing things. Oh, I wish Ron wouldn't have said that. Oh, man. I can't believe Ron said that. I'm going to have to deduct 10 points from him today. He was good the rest of the day, but Ron, he shouldn't have said son of a bitch. He shouldn't have said that. I'm going to deduct 10 points from his score today. God doesn't do that. Do you really honestly think that God does stuff like that? Anyway, I think that God has a sense of humor. And I think that he's quite aware of why we do things, the reason we do things in our heart. God knows my heart, and he knows that I didn't mean anything negative or evil saying that. He knows my heart. He knows exactly why I said it. And I feel confident, 100% confident, that he's not going to deduct points from me for loving my friend. I think that we do know God, what he feels. I mean, it's pretty obvious that God doesn't want us to, push a lady down the stairs. He doesn't want us to push an old lady down the stairs. He doesn't want us to hurt people. He doesn't want us to make people feel bad. He doesn't, besides the 10 Commandments and different things, he just wants us to do good. Is that judging? Am I thinking that I know what God, that I'm good enough or righteous enough to speak for God? I'm not saying, thus saith the Lord, you shall not push old women down the stairs. That's just common sense. When I was married, I went out in the kitchen. I had a 2-year-old boy. Went out in the kitchen, and Michael, my son, was playing with a great big carving knife. And anyway, I had to tell my wife, and it wasn't the first time, but I had to say, please, don't put the knives away from the kids. It's something they shouldn't play with. They can hurt themselves on it. Just things like that. And she used to give me she used to say, oh, you're not my daddy. You don't have to tell me what to do. Things like that. To me, it's just common sense, To me, it's common sense that God doesn't want us to set somebody's house on fire. doesn't mean that we're being evil by thinking that we know what God wants. I made a statement the other day that I was 100% sure of it, and I said to this person that I'm sure God feels the same way that I do. And this person was upset at me for saying that. And I still believe that that I was correct. I'm not stupid enough to make a statement that I think that God thinks this is okay, or God would approve of this and that and the other, unless I was sure of it. I love God. I know that God exists. How do I know that he exists? I've never seen God. I've never seen Spain. I've never been to Spain. I've never been to Europe. I don't believe it exists. I know it exists. Because I've heard about it. I've heard other people talk about it. I know that it exists. I know that God exists. How in the world can all this creation be by chance? I mean, how can it be by chance? You can take anything. You can take a human eye. Our eye is a magnificent lens. We can bring something towards us, and our eye automatically focuses for a nearer distance. We put something further away, our eyes focus on, automatically adjust, just like a lens of a camera. When we cut ourselves, it bleeds, and then there's a scab, and it heals itself. We have a slight tilt to our ears. If our ears were flat, then we wouldn't hear as much, would we? But it's slightly tilted so we can capture the sound. We have a hand, a beautiful hand, that can do things. It wouldn't be so good if we had just 4 fingers, not the thumb. And we can manipulate the hand in doing things. And it's a marvelous thing. Just a hand. You can take everything about the body. The way that we walk, the way we stand, or the way we can bend our arm and stretch out our arm and different things. Breathe, talk, smell, touch, enjoy food, taste. How can that all be by chance? How can the universe, the millions of universes out there, the astronomers say it's endless. There's just no end to it. With the modern telescopes that they have now, there's no end to it. Don't worry about our Milky Way and all this stuff. There's millions and millions of galaxies or whatever out there. There's no end to it. And it all has order. It appears that it all has an order to it. Whether it's gravity, whether it's this and that and the other, there's an order to it. And with an order, you would think that there was a creator. How can this all be by chance? How can it be by chance? It can't be by chance. I've seen spirits. I know that there's a spirit world. I've had so many miracles that have happened to me in my life that I can't deny. Things that cannot possibly be a coincidence. And so I know there's a God. I know there's something out there. whether he's, 6 feet tall or 50 feet tall, whether he's green, black, white, multicolor, I don't care. I don't care because he's God. And he loves us. He cares for us. We're his sons and daughters. One of the miracles that I have had happen to me is that there's a really nice area in the city that I live in. Anyway, it's an area that has a lot of upper class homes. Really a area that's real desirable. It's also close to downtown. Has really classic Tudor homes and just really a neat few streets in this area. And anyway, I talked to a guy and one day, and I was just asking him, just some guy that I met, and I asked him if he'd ever thought of selling his home. And so a long story short, he said yes, and we came to a price agreement. So I filled out it's been a while since I'm done real estate. What do you call that? I can't. My mind's not thinking properly now. Oh, an earnest money agreement. So I filled that out, the earnest money agreement, put $500 as earnest money, and took it over to him. We went over the earnest money agreement, and he signed it. So I told him that I was in the process of getting an FHA loan to take care of it. He said, fine. So then I find out that FHA was dragging their feet as far as approving the loan, and it would take a couple more weeks. So I went back to this guy, and I explained the situation, that the loan was going to take a couple more weeks than what I was hoping for, and the earnest money had a kind of a deadline on it. So I said, is it okay with you could you give me a 2-week extension on our real estate contract agreement here? He says, sure, no problem. So he got out a little piece of paper. I mean, really, really little piece of paper, like, like this, and filled out a 2-week extension for me and gave it to me. Well, anyway, just before the 2-week period of time was over, the loan had come through. I went up to his house, and I might have called him, I don't remember, and asked him what time he would like to set the closing up. And he says, oh no, it's too late to do that now. Your time has run out on the earnest money contract. I says, yeah, but you gave me the 2-week extension on it. He said, I didn't give you an extension on it. Your time's up. You can't buy this house. I know why he was saying that is because the price that I offered him, he found out that he probably could have got more, and he could have got more. And so anyway, he was telling me that I was full of it, and he didn't ever sign anything. So I knew that I had to find that piece of paper. If you could only see my place, someone gives me a business card in the morning, by the afternoon it's lost. That's how many papers I have on my desk. And I mean, anyway, so I'm swimming in paperwork. So anyway, I had lost this paper. I knew I was dead as far as having him perform on the contract that he signed and that I signed, that I was dead without this extension on the getting the financing together. and I needed that paper to take to an attorney and to get him to perform on the agreement. So I couldn't find it. I looked and looked. I'm telling you, I looked for days trying to find that little piece of paper. And I mean, you know how you look, at least I do. You look under a magazine or something, and you look all over, the house, and then you start over again. You start, go in the front room again, and you look under the magazine. Same magazine you looked under. I knew it wasn't there, but I looked at it under a second or third time anyway. I went all over the house. It was not there. I looked in the car. It was not there. Looked in all my pockets and my clothes. It was not there. So I remember, and I wasn't even going to church at the time. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't chasing women. But I wasn't going to church. I loved God. I wasn't going to church, but I remember going into my bedroom because I knew I didn't have a chance in getting this house and having this guy say what he promised to do without that piece of paper. So I remember one night I went into my bedroom, humbled myself, got down on my hands and knees, and begged God to show me where that piece of paper was. I pleaded with him to please help me find that piece of paper. And I swear that I got up from my bed. This is in the winter time. I got up from my bed just like a robot. I was just like a robot. I got up from my bed. I walked through the house, out the back door, out by the garage, to where it was, like I said, it was a winter, it was cold, and I went out to outside, opened up the garbage can lid, took the smelly garbage bag out of the garbage can, brought that inside my kitchen. Don't ask me why. I just did it. I just was doing it. So I went through that garbage sack in the middle of my floor in my kitchen, piece by piece. Oh, there's a can of tuna fish there, TV dinner there, onion peels here, whatever it was. I went through my garbage piece by piece by piece by piece. A big garbage bag. And that little piece of paper was on the very bottom of the garbage bag. Inside the garbage bag. The very bottom of it. Now, I know that I didn't throw that piece of paper away. There's no way in the world I would have thrown that piece of paper away in the garbage bag. The only thing I can think of is it might have been on my counter, and I might have brushed by, and that piece of paper went into the garbage bag. That's the only explanation I can think of. But God blessed me instantly. He knew that I needed to get this paper instantly. I needed this paper in the next couple of days, or else I, was out of luck. You pray sometimes, or you hear about people praying sometimes, and their prayers aren't answered immediately. Might take weeks, it might take months, it might take years before that prayer is answered. Well, I didn't have days, and I didn't have weeks or months or years. I needed to know where that piece of paper was then. And even though I didn't go to church, because I humbled myself that night and poured my heart out. He blessed me just like that. Just like that. So I know that's just one of the stories I could tell you. I'm full of a lot of things. And part of those things that I'm full of is stories. But I've had so many miracles happen to me in my life. I cannot deny that there's a God. I don't think there's a God. I know there's a God. I have no doubt whatsoever because of the things that have happened to me personally, not to mention the things that have happened to other people that I know. I know that there's a God. So, one story about my mother that died. She was in a hospital for, I guess, about 6 weeks. And anyway, she wasn't getting better. So we moved her to a hospice. And no, we moved her to, kind of like a hospice type deal. And anyway, I was the last last family member to visit her, and she didn't like to talk. I mean, I'd call her up every night before she went to the hospital. For years, I would call her up every night to see how she was doing. And she used to, she used to give me like one-word answers. I'd say, "Hi, Mom, how you doing?" "Fine." "Everything going okay?" "Yes." "You watching TV?" "Yes." "Anything good on?" "No." "You doing okay?" "Yes." And I say, "Well, love you, Mom. I love you." And she says, "Oh, I love you too. Thanks for calling." I went through that every night, one-word answers. So in the hospital, in this hospice deal, her mouth was dry. She really didn't like talking, and she didn't do a lot of talking because her mouth was dry and she wasn't feeling good. So during this time, her last few days in the hospice, they didn't force her to eat. They weren't giving her any medications. And they were kind of letting nature take its course as far as her passing away. Now, I've always been interested in spiritual things. And like I said, I've seen spirits before. And so I was the last to see her the night before she died. And I remember sitting in a chair beside her bed. And I said, "Mother," I said, "I want to ask you a question." I said, "Is there anybody that's visiting you that we don't know of?" And she says, "Yes." She wasn't hallucinating. She wasn't on any drugs. Anyway, I says, "Is there anybody that's visiting you that we're not aware of?" She says, "Yes." And can't remember exactly. Let me think. I'm trying to remember exactly what was said. I says, are these people spirits? Are they spirits that come? She says, "Yes." I said, "Do you know who they are?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Are they family members that have passed on?" "No." "But you do know who they are?" "Yes." "How many are there, Mother?" I think she said 6. There were part of them were male, part were female. She told me that that they didn't stay long, that they've appeared to her a couple of times. And I said, Mother, I says, what did they say to you? And she looked at me and she said, nice things. Now, when I left the hospital that night, I had such a peaceful feeling. That I was hoping to do this without tearing up. Anyway, I know I'm a crybaby. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a crybaby. But I had such a peaceful feeling leaving the hospital that night, just hearing her story and knowing that the spirits visiting her were preparing her for the inevitable, and they were there to love her and to help her through that process. So my sister calls me up the next morning, tells me that the mother died during the night, and I cried a lot because I was really close to her. And I ended up having a heart attack because through the process of crying, 2 stents that I had put in an artery going to my heart about 13 years before that time completely collapsed. So I remember being in the ambulance and I was thinking to myself, is this really how it ends for me? That I die on the exact same day as my mother dies? Anyway, so I know there's a spirit world. I know we're not alone. I know there's people, angels, messengers, whatever you want to call them, that look out for us, that care about us, that watch out for us. Sometimes bad things happen to us because man has been given its free agency to do things. Some people choose that free agency that they have to be the complete assholes that have no God inside of them other than they're a child of God. But anyway, so I know, sorry to get so emotional, but I can't help it. But I know there's a God, and that's just, just a few of the reasons why I know that there's something out there. When I tell you that I haven't really had any good luck on trying to reason with a woman, and I'm still not having any luck trying to reason with a woman that I really love. I remember a woman that I was dating, and I found out that she thought it was nothing wrong taking a bath with her 9-year-old son. So, I told her what I thought about that. I said, it's just wrong. It's wrong. Why is it wrong? I said, there comes a time in a boy's life that he needs his privacy. And he shouldn't be sitting in a bathtub with his mother looking at, private parts and different things. Oh, you're making something dirty out of it, Ron. How dare you? You're making something dirty out of it. I says, I'm not making anything dirty out of it. I said, if you want to think that, I guess you can think that, but it's just wrong. There comes an age and a time that you don't do stuff like that. I said, if I had a 9-year-old daughter, there's no way in the world I'd ever think of taking a bath with her, because it's wrong. I'm telling you, I can never reason ever with a woman. I just can't. So I tried. I've really tried. It's not because I haven't tried. I don't know. This girl that I told you about that was complaining about me saying "son of a bitch" when I was at the grave. When I went to high school, she was one of the cutest, most beautiful girls in all of my high school. She was so cute and so spunky. And so anyway, I got a hold of her number one night, 50 years later, and called her up to see how she was doing. And she'd gone through a divorce a few years before that. And we were talking on the phone about the good old days. I dated her a few times in high school, and after high school, I dated her. And before I went on my mission. And so, she was so cute. Anyway, so we agreed that we'd meet each other. And she came over to my house, and she was so fat and so ugly. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, I know that people change. And I know I'm not as stunning as I used to be. But she was just so fat and ugly. Anyway, long story short, she kept calling me, and I didn't want to be rude to her, and I talked to her on the phone and tried to be a friend to her and different things, but it's a pretty long story. But anyway, I'll tell you, and I'll be done with it. Anyway, we'd seen each other off and on for several years, and I would take her out to lunch just to be nice to her on her birthday or whatever. And of course, she'd want to, walk arm in arm into the restaurant, and I'd be embarrassed. I would really be embarrassed. I mean, we'd be sitting at the restaurant, and every single time we went out, she would drop her napkins on the floor. In Australia, it's called serviettes, I believe. Anyway, she would drop her napkins all over the floor. Sometimes she would fart. I mean, this woman was... Anyway, she told me all these stories about how horrible her childhood was. She says since she was 5 years old that she had been involved in a I can't even think of the name. It's a cult. What do you call those cults that are evil? Satanic cult. And anyway, she said that when she was 5 years old, that her father used to come and get her and take her out of bed at 5 and take her to this building where there was all these other satanic cult members, and they would rape her. She'd been raped by 1,000 men, and she'd been abused like that for years and years and years and years. And she said it wasn't until she went to a counselor that she remembered in her mind about this satanic cult and what she'd gone through, the time she was abused all of her life since age 5. And it wasn't until she went to the counselor that she remembered this. The guy that she was married to thought she was a little bit, that he really didn't believe her about the cult thing. And so what? Guess what happened? He went to this counselor, and guess what? All of a sudden, he knows that he was in a cult too, the same cult. I says, come on. I says, don't you think it's a little bit strange that your husband doesn't believe that? He goes to the same counselor that you went to, and all of a sudden, he has a memory that's come back that he was in the same cult. I said, things like that don't make sense, So anyway, she had so many mental problems. She was in a lockdown psych ward a couple of times since I was, just with her, off and on, just to be a friend to her because she needed somebody. And so anyway, everything had been going fine. The last time I took her out to lunch, everything was fine. I took her home. She says, you want to come inside for a few minutes? I said, fine. So I went inside. She had a cat and a dog, and I love animals, so I was petting them and playing with them. And she went out in the kitchen. She says, would you like a drink? And I said, sure. What do you have? Well, I've got a Coke. I've got orange juice. I've got Pepsi. I says, I'll have a Coke. Thank you. So she had a can of Coke, and I know how fussy she was with her place. Everything had to be, prim and proper as far as her house and her carpeting, and everything had to be clean, And you know how sometimes when you open up a can of pop that if the carbonation, you open it up sometimes, it kind of fizzes sometimes and squirts out. So I told her, when she was in the kitchen, I says, why don't you go ahead and open the can for me and then open it out there. And is that okay? Yeah, okay, Ron. So she opened up the can of pop, gave me the can of pop, and we talked for a while. And anyway, so I left. And then she usually calls me after I leave her place to see if I got home okay. So anyway, she hadn't called me. So I called her, I guess, I don't know, a little while longer or later, and to see if she was okay too. And she wouldn't answer her phone. She wouldn't answer her phone or call me. She used to call me several times a day. She used to drive me nuts. Sometimes she'd call me 9 times a day. And I didn't want to hurt her feelings because she was telling me about all this cult stuff, The cults, they're still after her. She goes outside and she sees cars that are going down the street with their lights on in the daytime. And I tried to explain to her, I says, well, that's the way cars are made now. A lot of times, the cars just have their lights on during the day. No, it's daytime and they don't need to have their car lights on. It's cult members driving around in those cars, turning their lights on, trying to scare me. There was 100 things that I could talk about where she talked about things like this. Ron, I'm scared. Ron, I'm scared. Why? Well, I went to use the shampoo, and someone had taken the shampoo out of the shampoo bottle and put conditioner in the shampoo, and they put the conditioner in the shampoo bottle, or whatever. And I says, come on, V, or whoops, almost said the name. I says, come on, are you sure? Why would they do that? Oh, because they're trying to scare me. She says, Ron, I'm scared, Ron, I'm scared. Why? On our garbage day, there was a garbage truck that came by, and the garbage truck went by my house, and they picked up other people's garbage on the street, And then about 10 minutes later, another garbage truck came and they picked up my garbage. Then they went down the street after they picked up my garbage. And I says, so I said, she says, that's a cult. The second garbage truck came and only picked up my garbage or her garbage. And it's a cult and they're going through her garbage to see what they can blackmail her with or whatever. I says, look, I said, there's two different garbage trucks. One garbage truck is for the recycled stuff like plastic and so forth. The other garbage truck is for your normal garbage. Could never reason with her, you know. Anyway, she had some real mental problems. So anyway, I went 2 months without her contacting me, and finally, I knew that she had this person that helped her on certain days to help her with her shopping and help her clean the house or whatever. So I called one day when I knew this other woman would be there, and I talked to the other woman. I said, "Hi, this is Ron. I'm one of so and so's friends," and I said she won't answer her phone. She doesn't call me. I was wondering if she was okay, you know. And she said, "Yeah, she's fine." I says, "Can I talk to her? Do you mind if I just talk to her for a minute?" "Sure, no problem." Gave the phone to this nutcase of a woman, and as soon as she found out it was me, she just wouldn't talk. And I says, "What's wrong, Vic? Or what's wrong?" And she says, "I don't want to talk about it." I said, the last time we saw each other, everything was going fine. We had a nice, lunch, and everything was fine on the way home, and everything was fine when I went inside. "I don't want to talk about it." I says, "What happened?" She says, "It's so terrible, I just can't talk about it." Anyway, long story short, after 2 months, I found out what was wrong. And guess what was wrong, boys and girls? The thing that was wrong is that I asked her to open up a can of pop, a can of soda. I asked her to open up a can of Coke. I said, why would that make you mad? Or why would that not want you to talk to me for 2 months? And I finally had to pry this out of her because she thought that I was going to get her fingerprints from the can of Coke, that I was going to take those fingerprints and place her at the sign of a murder, and I was going to pin, and the murder would be pinned on her because of her fingerprints. I mean, the things that I went through trying to be a friend to this nutcase of a woman. And I was a good friend. I was probably the best friend she's ever had. And I didn't have time to talk to her on the phone, 9 times sometimes. I didn't have time to talk to her. But I did because she was scared, because she was lonely, because she needed someone that could listen to her. And that was me. That was good old Ron. Well, I felt sorry for myself, and I was upset over it. I was thinking to myself, I'd spent years trying to be nice to this woman, and how does she repay me? Oh, another thing, she had she had a beautiful cat. She had a really beautiful cat, and he always used to purr when I would pet this cat and so forth. And I told her, anytime you ever want to get rid of this cat, don't take it to the shelter. I'd love to have it. Okay, Ron. So I found out that she gave the cat away, or took it to the shelter, or had it killed, or whatever. And I says, well, why did you do that? You knew that I'd love that cat, that I loved it. And then she says, well, I was afraid that you would take the cat and you would put it in the blender and liquefy the cat, and then you would try to feed that drink to me. I mean, she was really out of it. So anyway, I was upset that I had wasted hundreds of hours trying to be a friend to this woman, and how do I get repaid for it? You know? So I was feeling sorry for myself one night, and I heard a voice in my head. I've heard other voices in my head on other situations, but the voice I heard this time in my head, it said, Ron, you have not wasted your time because you've done those things. You've not wasted your time because you've done those things to me. And it reminded me of a verse in the Bible where it says, if you do these to the least of my brethren or the least of my people, you do those things unto me. I heard that. So I felt better, much better after I heard that. Anyway, that's my 100 minutes, or no, my hour worth of stuff. And there's a lot more that I want to say. I went the other day, and this is going to sound stupid, except to the person that I'm talking to, if she's listening to this. I went to a place the other day, and I saw Little Red Riding Hood, and she had the most beautiful red dress on, beautiful dark hair, beautiful eyes. She was stunning. She wasn't pretty, she wasn't beautiful, she wasn't cute, she wasn't sexy. Well, she was all those things, but she was absolutely stunning. And her spirit, the way that she loves God, her goodness is just unbelievable. The goodness that comes out of her is something that I want to cling to. And anyway, she, of course, had her, because she's Little Red Riding Hood, she had her little picnic basket. And out of curiosity, like I am being curious, like I talked to my mother about if she'd seen anybody like spirits or whatever, because of my curiosity, I was curious of what in the world this beautiful, stunning woman had in her little picnic basket. I was curious and I had to know. Nosy Ron had to know. So I very gently went over to the picnic basket, very carefully opened up the lid of the picnic basket, looked inside, and to my surprise, there were vanilla slices, there was hot chocolate, there was lemon meringue pie, there was all kinds of goodies, baby. And I loved every bit of it. Anyway, that's my story for the day. I've got work to do. I've got people to see, places to go, things to do. That's it, baby. Oh, and one other thing. To Little Red Riding Hood, I love you.